So again, I'm Greg Olson, but I'm going to really bring the star of the show is really Barry. He's going to go through the event ROI is really why you're here. With that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Barry. So again, thanks for coming.
The subject is proving the value of your trade shows and events. A big idea here is that we don't necessarily need to directly prove a monetary value of a trade show and event on an ROI basis for your organization. Sometimes you might want to take a look at how this event may compare to the other event and make a decision between the two. And so it may not be a direct monetary to the bottom line activity. It may be comparing your marketing activities and determining from a project management perspective which one goes away and which one you keep. So there's basically 5 easy steps. And so we're going to look, you can read this. So we're going to look at Marcy, being the researcher. We're going to talk a lot about voice of the customer today and how important that is to understand your voice of your stakeholders who are going to help you determine what your measurable objectives are, and the voice of your customer, who the event's for and what they need to make the event a 10 for them, if you will. That's one of the terms I use often is what would make this event a 10 for you. A lot of the content I'm going to talk about today is regarding a little more skewed toward what would be known as business theater. So when you bring your salespeople in or when you bring your distributors in for a conference or a convention, as opposed to a trade show. We have a little bit of trade show in here, but that's where our calculations are going to lie. So we're going to take a look at defining measurable objectives and creating an event plan to meet those. That's a very interesting process. And then we're going to talk about taking a look at how you talk to your customers such that you're asking them more than how was the shrimp. And we're going to talk about what attendees think, feel, say, and do. And we call those the quintessential values. All right? And so that's how they come. When you create your event and you present, you are going to try and change how people think, feel, say, and do after the event. So that's the purpose of why you're hosting an event or a trade show or whatever it is where you're getting people together. And then taking a look at events to produce the greatest return and which ones you should look at versus the other ones, and then how to measure ROI. Voice of the customer creates measurable objectives, leads to event execution against those objectives. You go and then measure, and then from those measurements you can get your return on event. So, in other words, data trumps politics. So, there's a simple formula. It looks like that. So it's a simple return on investment formula. So you have money that you've invested for your event. You get a return based on how you measured against your objectives. Some of what you've measured, performance over what you call break-even performance, what it takes to have your event break even. And these are parameters that you as a team and your stakeholders are going to decide what that looks like. So that's where that voice of the customer comes in. Okay, and break even is where the total cost equals total value created. So you take all your costs, people, time, travel, expense, and equals the value created. So you had your measurable objectives. We got 82 leads, and each of those leads is worth X number of dollars, and we talked to 72 customers, and we had so many direct sales, and all those things added up is your value created. And so if you have more value created than your event cost, you have a positive ROI. Pretty straightforward, like pretty much how you measure any ROI. So the key to this is going to be in the metrics that we determine and how we measure our performance. So there's 5 steps, simple. Okay, define your objectives, define metrics by which you'll measure how well the event meets those objectives, determine that break-even performance. So that's a big stakeholder discussion right there, because the salesperson may have a different view than the marketing person, and you have to have agreement of what you're going to measure. That's probably the single hardest thing that would be created. If you think about it, for an organization that has a long sales cycle, an event today, how do you measure the effect of an event today where the sales cycle might be 9 months down the road? So you have to have some kind of agreement what might have happened at that event that influences that sales cycle. And sometimes that's really hard to get to. So you'll determine the break-even performance. I needed 60 leads from my event to make it break even. And if you have less, well, you might not have broken even. If you have more, you have positive. And you're going to collect the data, and that's where some of the tools that Greg's going to talk about come in. And then we're going to run the calculations, and the calculations are pretty straightforward.